Good morning and welcome to the Abundant Retirement Show from Ross Wealth Advisors. Don Ross, the retirement boss, is here as he is every Sunday morning here at 7 a.m. here on Rewind. I'm Joe Bradley, your more than happy to be here host. And Don, you look like you're searching for a pen. You're searching for something.
You know what I like is we're in this awesome studio here at Rewind.
There's a pencil right there.
You can
go back to the old days and actually use a pencil.
It's 103.5, 104.3.
There you go.
You know one of those things after we say something really profound, you know those little noisemakers that go,
Yes.
We need to get one of those.
I have one of those, the spinning ones. I also have the whistle, the blow, the one that you blow and it goes ring.
Yeah.
So we may have to bring those in. We'll start implementing sound effects into the Abundant Retirement Show. Actually, if we're going to implement a sound effect, we should have the sound of a cash register. That I think would be a good one.
Now, that's our music intro. And our
right. Or maybe just the sound, just a peaceful sound, perhaps.
We wanted the theme song to was it Money with Pink Floyd?
Pink Floyd.
I guess that would be thousands of dollars in licensing fees or something like that.
That's the thing. It's funny how money is it's everything, and Pink Floyd, they would like to get paid. Roger Waters would like to have a check whenever you use his product, I guess.
All those listeners out there now are singing that song in their head.
Money, absolutely.
Boom, 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 boom. I'm not an artist, but I'm just plagiarizing their song.
4-star caviar daydreams. Think I'll buy me a football team.
Remember. Be careful. I don't have to pay royalties to somebody, Joe.
I was just saying that. It just seemed like a really clever line. I don't know where it came from.
I thought it was
but it's stuck in my head somehow. I'm not really sure how. But today's show is...
we're talking about myths.
But is it the myths show or is it the numbers show?
It's
kind of both.
The Abundant Retirement Show, and we're going to cover 4 myths over the next 4 weeks. You know what? I'm coming up with content, buddy. And the first myth is your retirement is a number. In other words, it's a myth. So there's a commercial on TV and it says, "What's your number?"
Yeah, and they show all these people and they're painting on a wall, it's like, oh, well, my number stops here, and the guy next to him is like twice that much, and somebody next to him is half that much, and that's really not a realistic way of looking at things because there is no number. I mean,
true.
I guess at some point there's probably a number that you could say, well, if I have this much money, I don't have to worry about it.
Well,
but, most people are not going to be in that situation. We're talking multiple millions and millions of dollars.
Because I have some clients that have, fairly substantial amounts and are still nervous to retire.
Right.
But that's an education thing. And, the number is a myth. So I want to discuss that today. And it's not about a specific number because it's about cash flow. But it's more importantly, it's about focusing on careful planning on making sure you consider what do you want to do in retirement? What are your priorities? How much debt do you have? There's some people, Joe, that, I'm going to retire at 64. Well, how'd you come up with that date? Well, I'll be done with my mortgage that year. I'm like, well, just because you have a mortgage doesn't really matter unless when you were a little kid, you sat on your grandpa's lap and he said, never have a mortgage when you retire.
That's the way Grandpa did it, so I guess that's the way I should do it.
But look at the generation Grandpa was
very
in,
different.
The Great Depression.
Very different. They didn't, that was a generation that didn't consider going into debt as just a common thing to do. And when I say going into debt, I mean, purchasing a car or purchasing carpet or remodeling your house.
Right.
They didn't do that on credit. They didn't do it that way. It was a different mindset. And that's very different to the way we live today. In reality.
A mortgage is not a bad thing.
No.
But your mindset might be that. But as we plan and build a plan together, and we'll talk about how to reach out to our office via email, phone call,
I was going to get into that before we get into the meat and potatoes.
Well, we better do that now,
Joe. The first myth, and that is the imperative thing. Many of the things that you are going to hear and you possibly have already heard in the Abundant Retirement Show have either piqued your curiosity or really cause you to question where you are and what you have going for your abundant retirement planning. And when that happens, the thing to do is to take action. take action very simply by calling Ross Wealth Advisors. It's very simple to do, 614-545-0277. That'll put you in touch with the office. They will get the information they need to get things started for you to get a one-on-one with Don, which is the key element there,
Yes,
the one-on-one. This when you call Ross Wealth Advisors, you're not calling... I don't mean to besmirch the goodness of other big companies necessarily, but some places you call, you're basically calling someone who takes your name and information, and then it goes into a big pile for the day, and then the next day somebody roots through it and starts handing them out, and who knows who's going to get it.
The old lead system.
You might get somebody that has 10 years experience. You might get somebody with 20 years experience. You might get somebody that was hired that week. That does not happen at Ross Wealth Advisors. When you call, you're calling with one goal in mind and one goal that'll be attained, and that is you'll be dealing with Don Ross. I mean, that's the reality. So keep that in mind when you call 614-545-0277. You're calling for Don. I mean, his name is on the company, and there's more than one reason for that, but the reality is you will deal with Don. RossWealthAdvisors.com is the website address. Very simple. If you're more comfortable with email, you don't necessarily want to be on the phone and you just would
start off with an email dialogue. You bet. It's
very simple. You will email Don, and you will email Don directly.
Yep.
Don at RossWealthAdvisors.com. And when you get an answer, it'll be from Don. It won't be from Don's robot. It won't be from, an intern, that's there for the summer. It will be from Don. So those things are very important for you to know when it's ready for you to take action. And you're bound to hear something during the Abundant Retirement Show. It's going to make you want to take action. Those are the ways to do it. RossWealthAdvisors.com, Don at RossWealthAdvisors.com, or 614-545-0277. Now, back to myth number one about retirement and abundant retirement, especially that's another key element. It's part of the name of the program, but there's a reason. There's a specific reason for that. That's what you are out to do, is make sure that people that are your clients have an abundant retirement. Not just, I was able to quit work and I'm scraping by I'm thinking about having to go back to work because I'm having trouble making ends meet. This is about something totally different.
Abundant has to do with an enjoyable retirement, because what's the opposite of abundance? One of scarcity.
Yes.
So we don't want you having abundant or a scarce retirement. So people drive by my office right there at Fishinger and Kenny here in Upper Arlington, and they're like, interesting, abundant retirement. Sometimes they stop in or they call and say, what's an abundant retirement? Well, it's not worrying about the myths or listening to what your coworkers say around the cooler, or your nephew who's a new stockbroker or an insurance salesperson. Nothing against them, but we're taking 30 years of experience plus my team to make sure that, in this case, myth number one, that your retirement is a number, is not the case. Is what have you saved, because you have a finite period of time when you're working. And what are you spending? We go through your budget, make sure we're spending what's appropriate. Now, I'm not going to be a miser and say, you should do less pedicures and
right.
Cut your own grass. No, we're not about that at all.
Because maybe that's what you see as abundance. You see,
I'm not looking to
weekly
curtail.
Pedicure is, to you, that's your thing, and that's what you like, or that's what you look forward to.
Well,
that should be part of your retirement.
Right. So I don't want you to cut back. You can decide to do that, but I'm going to show you a plan. And again, if you're 10 years from retiring, we still need to sit down, because we're even going to talk about your portfolio, because we want to make sure that whatever number it is, it's invested appropriately, and you're not going to get hammered the next 2008 market drop.
The longer I live, the more I realize that 10 years is not really a long period of time. 10 years used to seem like it was forever. 10 years goes by pretty quickly. If you look at your own life and you look back to what were you doing 10 years ago, and you realize, wow, okay, and where you are today, where did that 10 years go? It goes by very quickly.
10, I'm thinking the last 30. Well, I served 20-some years in the military, and I was a pilot, and I went to flight school a little bit later, and that was 1989. 9, and I'm thinking that's almost 30 years ago.
Yes.
So
yes, it is.
So, it's all about managing your retirement. And the myth is, your retirement is a number, a dollar amount. Not really. I mean, because you're going to accumulate only so much. We got to protect, preserve it. We have to make sure it's invested appropriately. And what else? Most of you that are saving, that are still 10 years out or retired, most of your savings are where? In retirement accounts.
Right.
And you pay none of that
It's the easy
tax.
way for that to happen. I mean, it's the logical and easy way. I mean, there are benefits that work along with that if you're employed by, a company that will do matching and things along those lines.
401k.
It's silly not to take advantage of the free money when it's offered to you, for sure.
If you're working for the state, you're paying into deferred comp. If you work for a nonprofit, you're paying into a 403b. The key is none of that you've paid a tax on or tax. And we have to talk about that strategy also. In other words, imagine you have $500,000. Okay, some of you saved half of that. Some of you saved 4 times that. Only half of that truly exists because you got to pay in tax unless we come up with a strategy. So that number, I've got $500,000 is really not $500,000. So we have to take into all that consideration. And the key is, like Joe was saying, is if you want to sit down with me one-on-one, it's 45 minutes, folks. I mean, we can get this first consultation done to see if we need a second. No one becomes a client on the first visit because it's my job to maybe send you on your way saying you're great.
It's very much like, if I can liken it to a first date. I mean, it's really
Absolutely.
pretty much, I need to learn a little bit about you.
And do we like each other?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that is
it's
a reality.
Very true. It's very true.
And that's something that you have mentioned many times throughout the course of time that we have discussed people's abundant retirement and what Ross Wealth Advisors brings to the table for individual clients. You don't necessarily work with everyone, and that's not to say that you're difficult to deal with, but the reality is not everyone and their needs and their interests and their goals match with what it is that you provide. So, out of, I don't know what the number is, but out of numerous clients that might meet with you, they don't all become full-time clients.
If I sit down with 10 people, and that could be a couple or it could be a widower, divorcee, singles, I'll end up working with 3 because it's a good fit. We like each other. I can bring you maximum value. And frankly, I've educated you. And that's what I wanted to say. If you come in and visit, I'm going to give you a copy of my book that I wrote that was edited by 5 clients. I've handed out hundreds. It's a fast read. And you read it and you go like, wow, this makes sense. It's my retirement survival guide. And, if you have saved $250,000 or more for retirement, give me a call, 614-545-0277. Or email me directly. We could have an email dialogue maybe before you step in the office, don@rosswealthadvisors.com. And I'd really love to get my book in your hands. Maybe you just want to email me and say, hey, can I read the book before I ever talk to you? Absolutely.
It's a little bit like online dating,
take
if
it
you think about it. I mean,
one step at a time.
You send an email, or you chat one way or another, or you communicate through some means before you ever actually have a face-to-face meeting. And
nowadays, even Facebook's coming up with some kind of dating app now. It's like, good heavens.
That's exactly what we need. The Abundant Retirement Show, thank you for listening to it, by the way. We're here every week on Rewind 103.5 and 104.3. Thank you for writing that down because I was not going to remember. I do appreciate that. And today it's the myths. We're going to do a series of myths about retirement. And today, number one myth is that your retirement is a number. Now, I want to point out that it seems oxymoronic because retirement, your number is a myth, but it's all about numbers. I mean, really, everything about it is about numbers, but there is no number, if that makes any sense.
It's not saying, okay, Joe, as soon as you get $501,000 saved, you can retire.
You're done.
Well, it may not work that way.
That may or may not be the number, and that's why your retirement isn't really a number. It is an actual focused plan that will provide income, a written income plan for your abundant retirement. And that is what Ross Wealth Advisors provides. And we'll be back to discuss more about the myths of your retirement here on Rewind on the Abundant Retirement Show. Joe Bradley here with Don Ross, the retirement boss of Ross Wealth Advisors, and we're discussing retirement planning versus retirement income planning. It's just a one word, but big difference, right, Don?
Absolutely. Significant difference, Joe. Retirement planning is about growing your assets, like in your 401ks, your IRAs, deferred comp. So when you retire, you have that money to enjoy that abundant retirement. Retirement income planning is different in our area of expertise. Remember, when that paycheck stops, everything changes. Are your assets positioned and invested properly to generate reliable income, regardless of what happens on Wall Street or Main Street, and more importantly, how long you live?
So Ross Wealth Advisors is really about specializing in this, right?
Absolutely. Any mistakes during this phase of your life could be catastrophic.
Whether you're retired or within 5 years of retiring or just have concerns about whether you're going to have enough money, call Don's office and schedule a complimentary visit. The number is 614-545-0277, or you can simply visit rosswealthadvisors.com. And welcome back to the Abundant Retirement Show here on Rewind, a service of Ross Wealth Advisors. Don Ross, the retirement boss, sitting here to my left, and
yes,
he is ready to greet you at Ross Wealth Advisors. Sit down for a brief visit, 45 minutes or so in person. You don't have to do that first thing. You can contact him by email. You can go to the website, rosswealthadvisors.com. You can email Don at rosswealthadvisors.com, or just call the office, 614-545-0277. Maybe you're not ready to go as far forward as actually setting up an appointment yet, but you have a couple of questions.
Yep.
They are more than happy to take your call and give you some information. And again, you'll be dealing with Don, not just a random person that pops up in the next person that calls gets this call list. It doesn't work that way.
It is 7 a.m. on Sunday,
right.
We have an answering service, and you'll notice I was over here playing with my phone, Joe. So
yes.
I was taking pictures and videos, which if you want to go to another place, Ross Wealth Advisors on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
It's not that informative. It's where I put just kind of goofy shots of whatever up there, but our website has very
It's basically what Facebook is, yes. Yeah. It could be
It's not a dating app, but it's...
Right. Not yet it isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't yet.
So it's just something fun. I'll throw some videos up there of us in the studio for those of you who like to, learn as much as you can. But the website's more helpful. But even more helpful, Joe, is 45 minutes with me. Set a time to come in, or if you're not quite sure, get a copy of my book. And ultimately, I want to do a written income plan for you. I want to analyze your portfolio because, like we're talking about, myth 1 of 4 myths.
And that is our focus today. Today is we're focusing on the 4 myths of retirement. And number 1 is one that it seems a little confusing to some extent because number 1 is your retirement is not a number. But I would think if you ask a majority of people, that would be the first thing they would say is, well, it's about how much money I have saved.
It's a bunch of numbers.
And yes, that is an element of it, but I think we've kind of been programmed into wanting to ask that question and have an answer to that question, and it's just plain not that simple.
Yeah, and I have some clients, Hal and Sarah. They were planning to retire in 2010. They didn't take into consideration their portfolio, and it was overly aggressive. Their nephew was managing it, and folks, it was way inappropriate for this 58-year-old couple looking to retire in 2 years, which would have been 2010. I've got stories.
Everything was great in 2007.
Yeah, I've got
They were doing fine in 2007, right?
Story after, I mean, right now people are kind of like, it's been 9 years, but Hal and Sarah were concerned, and when that market really took a hit, they didn't consider certain things because they thought they had a number. They thought if we got to $1 million, for instance, okay, and many of you have saved that, and some of you are on your way to saving that, and we want to help you all, but they just had bad advice. They lost 25% of it in 2008, and that was...
Yeah, so 2007, great, they're doing fine, they're very happy. 2008, they're crying.
25% wasn't bad. There's some people, Joe, that lost 30, 40%.
I know.
So it doesn't have to be that way. We put plans together. They're called written plans, but I want you to even read my book before that, the Retirement Survival Guide. I wrote it kind of the format of the survival guide I received in Army boot camp in 1981. And it's an easy read, 10 chapters, and the many that have read it said, wow, this is right on track. You're either talking to me or I'm not. And if it doesn't work for you or doesn't talk to you, then, we wouldn't be a good fit. But want to get that book in your hands.
Absolutely, and it is, by the way, absolutely free. There's no,
I say complimentary.
It's complimentary. That's right. But inside, the information is very valuable. I would certainly add that.
I've had all walks of life, because I work with all walks of life, saying this is so well written. Now, it's 100 pages, about size 16 font. I could have made it 300 pages, and then, who's going to read a book about...
Nobody.
Not even Dave Ramsey, who we all love. And,
so he might talk a book that's 300 pages, but he wouldn't read a book that's 300 pages.
Right.
They get 20 pages in and go, you know what? I don't think I've got another 280 pages in me.
It was practically written. I talk about how to invest, what financial products to look at. I talk about myths in that, too. And, the myths of retirement are important. And where you might hear a myth is, again, a colleague at a water cooler, or you're at a party, and the old E.F. Hutton commercials. Oh, I did 30% last year in the portfolio, and gee, how can we earn that? Well, you can't. You're going to get burned if you don't do that.
Well, I guess the truth is that yes, occasionally, once in a while, you can. But they don't ever talk about the other side of that.
Yeah,
which is the other side of that, which is the 30% loss. Which, when that balances out, there is no 30%. I mean, that evaporates as quickly as it is created. Which, again, that's another one of the myths, but not the myth that we're talking about today.
It's a number,
which is your retirement is not a number. It's a conglomeration.
The myth is it is a
numbers.
number, but it's not, and it's called planning. And I believe you should be with an independent advisor that's not slighted by who employs him, by the brokerage firm or bank. No offense to those organizations, but I left that organization, and I feel we were somewhat slighted on how we could help our clients get truly unbiased recommendations, so we can be your advocate. We're not selling, we're not telling, we're being your advocate to build your abundant retirement plan, and it starts with a written income plan. So what all the numbers you do have, how they're going to fund your retirement, because it could be the next 30 years. We're living longer, right, Joe?
Yes, well, that's the goal at least. And I would say one thing. I know you're a guy that likes analogies. I know you like the analogies because they resonate with people, because people can relate. Now, let's say you need to go out. You need to get a new suit. All right, you need a new suit. So you have choices. You can go and you can buy a suit at a haberdasher right off the rack, and it will be a suit. You'll have a jacket. You'll have pants. They will match. It'll be fine. And you've got a suit. Absolutely. Or you can go to a custom clothier.
In Hong Kong.
Wherever you need to go. That's right. Where you go with Warren Buffett and get a suit with him. And it will be custom designed for you, for exactly the way your body is, and the way your shoulders, the way you want them to look, the way you want the jacket to fit when it's buttoned or when it's open, the way you want the pants to fit where exactly on, above, or below your waist. It will be exactly right to fit you. That is, I would think, fairly the difference between what you do, Don, as the custom abundant retirement man, and the big companies that you were talking about that you used to work for that you left because they basically did like the suit store,
which it works. Kind of
it
works.
An off the rack. Here's what you get. This is the brown suit. Here it is. Here's the brown suit versus, well, I like brown, but maybe not that shade of brown. How about a different fabric?
Right.
How about a different cut? That's where you provide a better service. Than just the standard.
Maybe not even
here's
better.
A plan.
Maybe not even better. Maybe more appropriate. Half the people we bring aboard every year, they're leaving advisors. Not that anybody's doing anything wrong. It's just now the customization. Now, some people might say a custom suit's going to cost more. Not necessarily, because we're going to find where there's hidden costs in your current plan that you don't see. Okay, but it's talking about maybe a more appropriate plan. In other words, this Hal and Sarah I was talking about, their portfolio, they were 58 years old, okay?
So they're easily within 10 years of retirement.
They were going to be 2 years.
They were thinking about getting out. They're going to retire at 60.
But the concern I had with them is their portfolio was as if they were 35 years old. It was way too risky. If that helps you make a delineation between can I help you or not, I need to look at your portfolio.
Absolutely.
I see people 55, 60, 65, they come in and they're not diversified, and they have a portfolio as if they're 25, meaning at 25, you take a lot more risk than you can at 60.
And again, if you're 30 years old and you've got the T word on your side, and we talk about it a lot, and that T word is time.
Yeah.
If you're 30 and you're in a very aggressive and you have a very aggressive and risky portfolio, that's fine because you're trying to build it up. And if you take a sucker punch in the kisser, guess what? You've got 30 years or maybe even more or around that ballpark to make up for it, to get back on your feet. If you're 58 and you're thinking about retiring at 60, you've got 2 years.
Yeah,
that's,
2 years.
And that's unrealistic to try to recover, from a overly aggressive portfolio that hurts you.
And when we build a plan, everyone, I want you to know that we can amend it. We can look at it every year because you know what? The curveballs of life are going to happen to you in retirement. My mom died of Alzheimer's. My dad didn't expect to feed my mom, spoon feed her the last year of her life, but that stuff happens. And we want to build a plan that it protects you from all the different things that we can plan for. We can't do everything, but
that's the truth.
I want to sit down with you for 45 minutes. And if you call the office 614-545-0277 and you've saved at least $250,000 for retirement, our 45 minutes will be extremely valuable for you, whether we get together again or not, so you can start making decisions whether we are going to work as a team or you need to go a different direction. So 614-545-0277 or Don at rosswealthadvisors.com. Let's just start having a conversation.
I think what's interesting is that, when people sit down with you, Don, and have that initial consultation, they get to know each other kind of meeting. I would imagine that a lot of them who currently do have advisors probably go and ask some questions. I think that probably happens quite often, is that they think, well, wait a second, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know answers to a lot of these questions. I'm going to ask. And when they don't get the answers they expect or they don't get an answer at all.
I challenge you, go back and ask your advisor. Now, before you come in, you can even ask my staff to send you, or me directly, an inventory I can have you complete. There's a questionnaire on there about rate your advisor now. What do you expect from your advisor? Do you know what you're paying in fees? How often do you meet? I mean, we get to know you very well because it's kind of like if you go to a doctor with a knee ache and he's looking around your shoulders, they're not looking at everything. And I want to look at everything, folks. And that's what comprehensive retirement planning is all about.
Absolutely. And the idea is to be sure that you have an abundant retirement. And that's what Ross Wealth Advisors.
That. Yeah, I mean, you define what abundant is.
That's the thing that you define, and then Ross Wealth Advisors aids you in making sure that is going to happen with a written income plan. When we say written, it's basically a computer spreadsheet, but you can print it out if you want it, on an actual piece of paper. But the idea is that it's there and it tells you exactly what is going to be happening over the course of your abundant retirement.
Well, and while we're building it, and again, you can go to my website. On the landing page, it shows me with multiple clients in my little video, if you will. It shows me at the desk where we'll sit, where I'm walking through numbers with clients, and ultimately it's written, but we go through it and we can massage and adjust it based on your needs.
That's the thing, and everyone's needs are different, but everyone's desire is probably very similar, and that is to have a comfortable and abundant retirement where they can enjoy it, because that's the ultimate goal.
Yep.
I mean, you haven't worked your entire life to be miserable once you stop working and your life changes dramatically.
And some of you probably don't like your job. I see it every day, so maybe let's get you out sooner than later.
Let's just make sure that the direction you take is going to be the right one, and that's what Ross Wealth Advisors will do for you and your abundant retirement. Check out the website. It's rosswealthadvisors.com. You can call very simply 614-545-0277. If email is your preferred way of making a contact with a new friend, email Don at rosswealthadvisors.com. He will respond to you and start your relationship with rosswealthadvisors.com.
You bet. Look forward to hearing from all of you.
Absolutely. And next week, 7 a.m., here on Rewind, the Abundant Retirement Show.